There are phrases men say every single day, phrases they believe communicate care, devotion, and emotional honesty. But when a woman hears them, something shifts. Not immediately, not dramatically. But gradually the energy changes, the warmth cools, the connection loosens, and the man is left standing there, genuinely confused, replaying his words, wondering what he said wrong. You meant well. You were trying to be open, vulnerable, emotionally present. You thought you were doing exactly what women say they want. And yet, somehow, it backfired. She became distant, less responsive, less engaged. And now you're asking yourself a question that quietly haunts too many good men. If women want honesty and connection, why does giving it sometimes push them away? This isn't about censoring yourself. It's not about playing games or holding back emotions. It's about understanding the psychological weight your words carry, and why certain sentences, no matter how sincere, can quietly dismantle attraction the moment they leave your mouth. Before we go any further, let me be clear about something. The problem is never your intention. Most men who say these things are coming from a genuine place. The issue is what your words signal beneath the surface, what they communicate about how you see yourself, and how that perception reshapes how she sees you. I'm speaking to you as someone who understands both sides of this dynamic, what men mean when they speak, and what women actually hear. If any part of this already feels familiar, hit the like button. And if you want to understand female psychology before confusion quietly turns into distance, subscribe now. Number 1. I can't imagine my life without you. Most men say this thinking it sounds romantic, devoted, even poetic. It feels like the ultimate compliment, the deepest expression of love. But when a woman hears it, her brain processes something entirely different. What registers isn't love, it's loss of self. In that moment, you're not presenting yourself as a complete man who chooses her from a place of strength. You're signaling that your identity has become tangled with hers, that your sense of direction now depends on her presence. And while that might feel like intimacy to you, to her it feels like weight. And weight suffocates attraction. Here's the psychological truth most men never hear. Attraction doesn't grow between a man who needs and a woman who's needed. It grows between two whole people who choose each other without requiring each other to function. The moment your words suggest that she has become your center, your anchor, the thing holding your world together, you've stepped off your own foundation. And women don't feel desire for men who've abandoned their center. They feel desire for men who remain grounded while inviting them in. Let me show you how this plays out in real relationships. A man meets a woman he genuinely connects with. At first, he has his routines, his hobbies, his goals. He makes time for her, but his life still has structure and momentum. She feels that energy. She responds to it. Then, slowly, his language shifts. Plans get rearranged around her schedule. Priorities blur. His energy starts mirroring her mood. And one evening, in what he believes is a moment of deep emotional honesty, he says, "I can't imagine my life without you." What happens next is subtle, but it's real. She doesn't argue. She might even smile. But something inside her relaxes in the wrong direction. Because now, instead of stepping into a man's world, she feels like she's being asked to become the world itself. And no woman wants that responsibility. Not because she's selfish, not because she doesn't care, but because the female nervous system is wired to respond to strength, not dependence. Desire requires polarity. And polarity dies the moment one person dissolves their boundaries to hold the other close. This is where men misunderstand women most deeply. They think devotion builds attraction, but women experience attraction through self-possession. When you say you can't imagine life without her, you're unintentionally admitting that without her, you're incomplete. And once that idea settles into her mind, attraction begins to leak. Not all at once, not loudly, but steadily. Because now every disagreement feels heavier, every moment she needs space feels threatening, every choice she makes feels like it defines your stability, and she can feel that pressure even if she can't articulate it. Here's the truth most men aren't ready for. A woman doesn't want to be the center of your universe. She wants to be invited into a universe that already has gravity. She wants to feel your direction, your momentum, your grounded sense of self. Not because she wants less closeness, but because real closeness only exists when you haven't erased yourself to create it. When a man says, "I can't imagine my life without you," he thinks he's giving love. What he's actually giving is his balance, and attraction never survives that exchange. Number 2, "I'll change whatever you want me to change." This sentence usually comes from a desire to please, to be flexible, to show that you value her opinion. It sounds cooperative, even emotionally mature, but psychologically it's one of the fastest ways to collapse your perceived value. There's a critical difference most men never learn. Consideration is attractive. Self-abandonment is repellent. When a woman hears, "I'll change whatever you want me to change," she doesn't hear adaptability. She hears absence of self. In that moment, you're communicating that you don't have internal standards, that your identity is negotiable, that you're willing to reshape yourself based on external feedback rather than internal conviction. And here's what happens in her mind, even if she never voices it. If you don't know who you are, how can I trust you to lead anything? If your boundaries are flexible enough to mold around my preferences, what happens when life gets hard? What happens when I need you to hold firm? Women are not drawn to men who become whatever is asked of them. They're drawn to men who know what they stand for and invite her to stand there with them. From a psychological perspective, attraction requires friction, not conflict, but edges, the sense that you are a complete person with beliefs, standards, and non-negotiables. When you offer to change anything she wants, you're removing those edges, and without edges there's nothing to respect, nothing to push against, nothing to desire. Here's how this typically unfolds. A woman expresses a preference or mild criticism, maybe about how you spend time, how you communicate, how you handle situations. The man, wanting to keep peace and show he cares, immediately agrees to adjust. At first, she might appreciate the gesture, but underneath, something shifts. Because now she's not responding to who you are, she's managing who you're becoming. And management is the opposite of attraction. Over time, this pattern compounds, more preferences, more adjustments, more reshaping. And with each change, the man believes he's getting closer to what she wants. But what's actually happening is he's drifting further from who he was when she was first attracted to him. This is where many men feel blindsided. They say, "I did everything she asked. I changed for her, and she still left." And that's exactly the problem. You changed into someone she couldn't respect. Women don't want men who mold themselves. They want men who are grounded enough to say, "I hear you, I value your perspective, and here's where I stand." That's not rigidity, that's integrity, and integrity is magnetic. Here's the distinction that changes everything. You can grow with a woman without losing yourself in the process. Growth means integrating new perspectives while maintaining your core. Self-abandonment means erasing your core to avoid tension. A woman can love a man who evolves. She cannot desire a man who evaporates. Number 3. You're perfect. This sentence feels like the ultimate compliment. It sounds adoring, generous, even poetic. But psychologically, it's a trap that creates distance the moment it's spoken. Here's why. When you call a woman perfect, you're not elevating her. You're creating an impossible standard she now has to maintain. You're putting her on a pedestal, and pedestals are lonely, fragile places where real connection cannot exist. The female mind responds to this in a specific way. At first, she might feel flattered, but beneath that surface reaction, something uncomfortable begins to form: pressure. Because now she knows that your perception of her is detached from reality. And if your attraction is based on perfection, what happens when reality inevitably appears? Women don't want to be idealized. They want to be seen. There's a massive difference. When you say she's perfect, you're communicating that you're not actually seeing her. You're projecting an image onto her, and that image becomes a cage. Because now she has to hide her flaws, manage your perception, perform perfection instead of simply existing. Here's what happens next. The moment she shows humanity, makes a mistake, reveals insecurity, or behaves in a way that contradicts the perfect image you created, cognitive dissonance sets in. Not just for you, but for her. She starts wondering if you'll still want her when the illusion cracks, and that wondering creates emotional distance. From a psychological standpoint, attraction thrives in authenticity. It requires the freedom to be imperfect, to be human, to be fully known without fear of losing value. The moment you label her as perfect, you remove that freedom. And without freedom, intimacy suffocates. Let me show you the alternative. Instead of saying she's perfect, acknowledge what you actually appreciate. Instead of vague idealization, offer specific recognition. I love how you think through problems before reacting. I'm attracted to how you stay calm under pressure. I appreciate the way you make people feel heard. That's not perfection. That's presence. And presence is what builds real connection. Here's the deeper truth. When you idealize a woman, you're not honoring her. You're protecting yourself. You're creating a version of her that can't hurt you, can't disappoint you, can't challenge you. And women feel that self-protection. They sense when your words are about managing your own feelings rather than genuinely seeing theirs. Women don't need to be worshipped. They need to be known. And being known requires you to stop performing adoration and start offering attention. Number 4. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. This sentence sounds helpful, accommodating, even selfless. Many men say it believing they're being supportive, but what they're actually doing is handing over leadership, and women notice immediately. Here's the psychological reality. Women are not attracted to men they have to direct. They're attracted to men who move with purpose and invite them along. When you constantly ask her to tell you what to do, you're signaling something deeper than flexibility. You're signaling that you don't trust your own judgment, that you need external validation to make decisions, that you're unsure of your direction. And uncertainty is one of the fastest ways to kill attraction. Women want to feel like they're with a man who knows where he's going. Not a dictator, not someone inflexible, but someone grounded enough in his values and vision that she doesn't have to constantly navigate for both of them. The moment you repeatedly ask, "What do you want me to do?" you're forcing her into a masculine role. You're making her manage, decide, and steer. And while she might be capable of doing that, it's not what creates desire. Desire grows when she can relax into her feminine energy and respond to yours, not when she has to become the decision maker because you've abdicated that responsibility. Here's how this usually plays out. Small decisions at first: where to eat, what movie to watch, what plans to make. The man, wanting to be agreeable, defers every time. Whatever you want, you decide. I'm fine with anything. At first, she might not mind, but over time something shifts, because now she's not just making decisions for herself, she's carrying the mental load for both of you, and that load is exhausting. This is where many men get confused. They think they're being easygoing and flexible, but what she's experiencing is the weight of constant decision-making combined with the absence of masculine direction. And that combination drains attraction. Here's the distinction that matters. Having preferences doesn't make you controlling. It makes you present. Sharing your opinion doesn't create conflict. It creates polarity. And polarity is what keeps attraction alive. A woman doesn't want a man who has no opinions. She wants a man who has opinions and holds them lightly enough to consider hers. That's the balance, not dominance, not submission, but grounded presence that invites collaboration without collapsing into indecision. Here's the upgrade. Instead of asking her what to do, make a decision and invite her input. I'm thinking we could try this. What do you think? That's leadership with openness. That's direction with respect. And that's what attraction responds to. Number 5, I'm nothing without you. This is perhaps the most dangerous sentence on this list because it sounds deeply romantic in movies and songs. It feels like the ultimate declaration of love. But psychologically, it's a declaration of dependence. And dependence kills desire faster than almost anything else. Here's what happens in a woman's mind when she hears this. Panic. Not conscious panic. Instinctive panic. Because what you've just communicated is that your emotional survival depends on her staying. That her presence isn't a choice, it's a necessity. And necessity creates obligation, not attraction. Women do not want to be needed in this way. They want to be chosen. There's a profound difference. When you say, I'm nothing without you, you're transferring the responsibility for your worth, your happiness, and your identity onto her shoulders. And that weight is crushing, because now every time she needs space, every time she wants independence, every time she prioritizes herself, she's not just making a personal choice, she's threatening your entire sense of self. That's not love. That's emotional hostage-taking. And no one desires what they feel trapped by. From a psychological perspective, attraction requires two complete individuals. It cannot survive when one person has made the other their life support system. Because the moment you communicate that she is your everything, that you are nothing without her, you've collapsed the polarity that makes desire possible. Here's how this plays out in real relationships. The man believes he's showing ultimate commitment. The woman feels ultimate pressure. Every decision she makes now carries extra weight. She starts self-regulating, choosing words carefully, hesitating before expressing needs or doubts. Not because she wants to manage him, but because she doesn't want to be responsible for his collapse. And that self-regulation creates distance, because she can no longer be fully honest. She can no longer be fully herself. She's now editing her experience to protect his emotional stability. And relationships cannot survive that level of performance. This is where men often feel confused. They say, I was showing her how much she means to me. But what she experienced was the burden of being someone's entire reason for existence. And that burden suffocates intimacy. Here's the truth that shifts everything. A woman wants to matter to you deeply, without being your entire source of meaning. She wants to be valued without being your emotional foundation. She wants to know that you would grieve her loss, but that you wouldn't collapse into nothing if she left. Because stability is attractive, dependence is not. When you build your identity around another person, you create a relationship where love becomes obligation and presence becomes pressure. And those conditions make it impossible for attraction to survive. What you need to understand is this. None of these sentences are dangerous because they express emotion. They're dangerous because of what they signal about your relationship to yourself. Words don't just convey how you feel, they reveal how you see yourself. And women are extraordinarily attuned to that signal. When your language dissolves your identity, transfers your stability, idealizes without seeing, abandons leadership, or communicates dependence, Attraction doesn't fade because you weren't loving enough. It fades because you stopped standing in yourself. Love was never the problem. Self-abandonment was. Real attraction isn't built on how much you sacrifice. It's built on who you remain while you love. A woman doesn't connect to the parts of you that dissolve for her. She connects to the parts that stay solid, grounded, and whole. This is the shift most men need to make. Loving a woman doesn't mean making her your center. It means inviting her into a life that already has direction. It means caring without collapsing, committing without erasing, and standing firm without becoming cold. Here's the line I want you to remember, because it changes everything. Attraction doesn't grow from sacrifice. It grows from self-respect. If this video helped you recognize patterns in your own relationships, hit subscribe. This channel exists to help you keep your emotional power without losing your ability to connect deeply. Leave a comment with the phrase you've said before that finally makes sense now, and share this with a man who's loving hard but losing himself in the process. Because the goal isn't to say less, it's to stand as more.